My older brother Marcus measures success in stock tickers and the square footage of his downtown penthouse. I measure it in the tight swirling grain of black walnut and the perfect seamless fit of a dovetail joint. He lives and breathes in a world of gleaming glass towers, seven-figure bonuses and conversations about market volatility that sound to me like a foreign language. My world smells of sawdust wood varnish and the deep, satisfying peace of creating something real and tangible with my own two hands. To me, that is a language I understand completely. To my family, it has always been a source of quiet, polite disappointment. From the moment we were old enough to have ambitions, Marcus and I were set on different trajectories. He was the golden child, the one destined for an Ivy League school and a corner office. He collected accolades, debate team trophies, honor roll certificates, scholarships, with an effortless grace. I collected scraps of interesting wood and old worn-out tools. While he was studying for his SATs, I was learning how to read the soul of a piece of timber, to see the table or the chair hidden within the raw material. To my parents, Marcus was not just a son. He was a success story, a walking, talking return on their investment. My chosen profession, custom carpentry, was viewed differently. It was a quaint hobby, a respectable trade for someone else's son perhaps, but a disappointment for their own. I remember the moment this difference was carved into my memory, as sharply as one of my own chisels. I was 16 and had just spent 2 months painstakingly crafting an intricate chessboard out of bird's eye maple and rosewood. It was the most complex thing I had ever made, and I was immensely proud of it. The same afternoon I finished it, Marcus came home with his final report card of the year straight A's, with a glowing letter of recommendation from his calculus teacher, already secured for his college applications. That evening, my father called us into the living room. He held Marcus's report card in one hand, beaming. "This son," he announced, clapping Marcus on the back. "This is a ticket to anywhere you want to go in life. We're so proud of you." My mother was already talking about getting it professionally framed. Then my father turned to me. "What's that you've got there, Leo?" I brought the chessboard forward, my heart pounding with a nervous hope. He took it, glanced at it for a moment, and set it down on the coffee table. "Oh, that's very nice, Leo," he said, his attention already drifting back to Marcus. "It's good to have a hobby to keep you busy. Just make sure it doesn't distract you from your real studies, all right?" That was the moment I understood. In their eyes, his piece of paper covered in letters and numbers was real. It was valuable. It was the future. My creation, a thing of beauty and skill that I had poured my soul into, was just a distraction. That dynamic never changed. It only widened as we grew older. He climbed the corporate ladder, and I honed my craft. He lived in the sun, and I learned to find satisfaction in the shade. But every now and then, he would make a point of reminding me just how long and dark his shadow could be. The storm arrived in the form of a woman named Isabella. My dad announced he was seeing someone during one of our Saturday sessions with the Mustang. He'd been fumbling with a wrench, his movements uncharacteristically clumsy, before he finally just stopped and looked at me. "Alex, there's someone I've been seeing," he said, a nervous, boyish grin spreading across his face. "Her name is Isabella. I think you'll really like her. She makes me happy, son. Happier than I've been in a long time." The genuine hope in his eyes was so bright, it was impossible for me not to be happy for him. For 15 years I had been his whole world. I knew he deserved more than that. Isabella was on the surface perfect. She was a sophisticated art consultant in her early 50s with a chic auburn bob and a laugh that was light and musical. When I first met her, she was impossibly charming. She complimented my teaching career, asked intelligent questions about the historical periods I focused on, and told my dad, "He's just as wonderful as you," said David. She was almost too perfect, her charm a little too polished, and a small quiet alarm bell went off in the back of my mind. The relationship moved at a speed that left me breathless. Within 3 months, they were engaged. 3 months after that, they were married in a small, elegant ceremony in the backyard of our home. I stood beside my dad as his best man, watching him look at Isabella with an adoration that was both beautiful and, for reasons I couldn't yet articulate, terrifying. I felt like a spectator watching a story that was no longer my own. After the wedding, things began to change. The changes were small at first, like the tide slowly erasing a sandcastle. Isabella began updating the house. My mother's old, comfortable armchair, the one with the worn fabric where she used to read to me, was the first thing to go. It was replaced by a sleek, minimalist leather chair that looked like it belonged in a magazine, but was impossible to get comfortable in. When I mentioned it, Isabella smiled sweetly. "We're building a new life together, darling," she said. "It's important to have a space that reflects us." The photos of my mother that had lined the hallway were gradually moved first to a less prominent wall, then into a photo album that was stored in the attic. The comfortable lived-in clutter of our home was replaced with a sterile, curated elegance. My dad, completely infatuated, didn't seem to notice. Or if he did, he saw it as a positive change. "Isn't she wonderful?" he'd say, looking around at the redecorated living room. "She's brought so much life back into this old house." But it felt to me like a different kind of life was being scrubbed away. Isabella's comments became more pointed, always delivered with a charming smile. "Oh, David was just so lost and lonely. Before I came along," she'd say to her friends in front of me. "It's been my greatest joy to help him find happiness again." The implication was clear. The 15 years my father and I had spent together, the world we had built, was just a period of lonely darkness from which she had rescued him. Our bond, once the central pillar of his life, was being reframed as a sad placeholder until she arrived. The fortress of us against the world was still standing, but I was beginning to realize that I was no longer on the inside of the walls. For a full hour after Chloe's call, I just sat there, staring at the login screen for Ethelgard. My first instinct was to say no, to text back a polite excuse about a work deadline, a deadline only. I would know was real. It would be easy to retreat into the world where I was respected, where my name, or at least my pseudonym, carried weight. Instead, I logged into the private developer server chat. This was my real office, my real community. My team, a scattered group of brilliant misfits from around the world, knew me only as Astra. They knew my mind, my work ethic, my vision. They had no idea what my sister did for a living. I typed out a message into the main channel. "Okay team, I need advice on a social stealth quest. I've just been assigned. Primary objective, attend a dinner party hosted by my sister. The real success story. Secondary objective, impress a tech billionaire she's trying to land as a client. Debuff, I have been instructed not to talk about elves or dragons, and to act normal. Thoughts?" The response was immediate. Kael, our lead combat designer in Finland, sent a string of laughing emojis. "Wait, hold on. The architect of the Whispering Peaks expansion has to pretend she's normal for her real estate sister." "This is priceless," Lyra, my head writer based in Scotland, chimed in. "Treat it like an infiltration mission. Astra, your cover is unemployed little sister. Your mission is to observe the local customs, gather intel on the target, this billionaire, and extract yourself with your sanity intact. Bonus points if you can make her talk of closing costs and property taxes sound incredibly boring." Their reactions, their complete and utter amusement at the absurdity of my real-life predicament, felt like a shield. They saw the situation for what it was, a ridiculous play. They weren't seeing me through the lens of family history and disappointment. They saw me as Astra, the capable and revered leader of their world. Their perspective gave me the distance I needed. I typed back, "Okay, quest accepted. Wish me luck." They were right. This wasn't a family obligation to be dreaded. It was a quest, a bizarre high-stakes role-playing game in the real world. My objective was clear. I wasn't going there to seek their approval or to try and change their minds. I was going as an observer, an anthropologist studying a strange and foreign tribe. With this new mindset, preparing for the party felt different. It wasn't about trying to impress them. It was about choosing my armor. I went through my closet, bypassing anything that looked like I was trying too hard. Chloe would be in something bright, sharp, and expensive, a dress designed to be a statement. I chose the opposite. I picked a simple, perfectly cut black dress, made of heavy silk that didn't wrinkle. It was understated, elegant, and almost severe in its simplicity. It wasn't a dress designed to compete with Chloe's fireworks. It was a dress designed to absorb light, to be a quiet, unshakable presence. I did my makeup minimally, pulled my hair back into a sleek bun, and looked at my reflection. I didn't see the disappointing little sister. I saw a character I was about to play, equipped for her mission. I was logging in, of course. Here is part 4 of the story, covering Maya's arrival and the initial interactions at the dinner party. Chloe's home wasn't a home. It was a showroom. Everything was white marble, brushed steel, and shades of grey. A single enormous abstract painting hung on one wall, a piece I knew for a fact had cost more than my car. The floor-to-ceiling windows looked out onto a breathtaking cityscape, a view designed to communicate power. The air was filled with the low hum of quiet networking and the scent of expensive perfume. I felt my armor of calm detachment being tested the moment I stepped inside. This was not my world. Chloe greeted me at the door with a kiss that landed somewhere in the air beside my cheek. Her smile was wide and bright, but it was for the benefit of her guests, not for me. "Maya, you made it," she exclaimed, her voice a little too loud. "Everyone, this is my little sister I was telling you about." The way she said little sister made me sound like a child. She was begrudgingly babysitting for the evening. My parents immediately cornered me near the coat closet. "Maya, dear," my mother whispered, her eyes scanning my simple black dress with obvious concern. Are you still looking for a real job? I have a friend whose law firm is hiring a paralegal. It's a very respectable position." My father nodded in agreement, adding, "A steady paycheck is nothing to be ashamed of, honey." They meant well, I knew, but their concern was a heavy, suffocating blanket of disapproval. I gave them a tight smile and promised I would think about it, a lie we all accepted. After about an hour of my trying to look absorbed in a potted orchid, Chloe grabbed my arm. "He's here. Come on, I want to introduce you." She pulled me toward a small group of men at the center of which stood a man who did not look like a billionaire. Damien Vance was unassuming, dressed in a simple dark sweater and trousers, and he had a quiet, observant stillness about him that made everyone else in the room seem loud and performative. He looked profoundly bored. "Mr. Vance, so wonderful to see you again," Chloe said, her voice practically purring. "I'd like you to meet my sister Maya." Mr. Vance turned his keen eyes, meeting mine. He gave me a polite, professional handshake. "A pleasure, Maya," he said. His voice was quiet. "And what is it that you do?" he asked, a standard, polite party question. Before I could deliver my vague, pre-rehearsed line about being a freelance digital artist, Chloe jumped in with a tinkling laugh. "Oh, Maya is our family's resident creative spirit. She's very artistic, currently exploring her options." She dismissed my entire career with a wave of her hand and immediately pivoted back to the only subject she deemed worthy of Mr. Vance's attention herself. Speaking of which, Mr. Vance, the zoning board, approved the preliminary plans for that lakeside property we discussed. The potential for redevelopment is even greater than we thought. She launched into a detailed monologue about property values and investment returns, effectively erasing me from the conversation. I stood there, an awkward satellite in my sister's orbit, and I did exactly what I had planned. I stuck to my quest objective. I smiled politely, nodded when it seemed appropriate, and observed. I watched as Mr. Vance listened, his expression unreadable. I watched as my sister preened and performed, laying out her value and ambition for him to see. I wasn't a participant in this scene. I was an analyst gathering data, and the data I was gathering was that my sister had no idea who she was talking to, and no idea who she was ignoring. As a server announced that dinner was served, I felt a strange sense of calm. The game was afoot. Of course. Here is part 5 of the story covering the pivotal dinner table scene. Dinner was an elaborate multi-course affair. I was seated between my father and the wife of one of Chloe's colleagues, a woman whose name I immediately forgot. The conversation flowed around me, a river of talk about interest rates, vacation homes in Aspen, and the merits of a particular private school. I remained in my role as observer, eating my food silently, a ghost at the feast. My parents, seated near the head of the table, directed all their questions to Chloe, their pride in her radiating with almost physical warmth. They were in their element, their daughter holding court with a billionaire at the table as the ultimate validation of their family's success. The moment I had been dreading arrived with the dessert course. The woman beside me, perhaps trying to be polite after an hour of ignoring me, turned with a bright, curious smile. "We've heard so much about Chloe's incredible career," she said. "Maya, what about you? What field are you in?" The question, though innocent, made the table fall quiet for a beat. All eyes turned to me. I felt a familiar heat creep up my neck. I opened my mouth to deliver my vague safe line about being a freelance digital artist, but before I could speak, Chloe let out a loud theatrical laugh that drew every last bit of attention in the room. "Oh, you don't have to be so modest, Maya." "Tell them," she said, her tone dripping with condescending encouragement. She leaned forward, a conspiratorial smirk on her face. She was enjoying this. She was going to answer for me. "My sister is one of the most dedicated people I know," Chloe began, her voice full of false admiration. "She spends 12, sometimes 14 hours a day focused on her work. She's actually one of the top-ranked players in the world." She paused, letting the statement hang in the air before delivering the punchline. "At her favorite video game. She's practically a professional." A few of Chloe's sycophantic friends tittered. My mother's smile became a tight, pained line. My father cleared his throat and took a sudden deep interest in his tiramisu. Chloe, however, was just warming up. It's true she insisted as if I were a fascinating science experiment. While I'm out here in the real world navigating the complexities of the multi-million-dollar luxury real estate market, my little sister is at home slaying digital dragons. It's a different kind of market, I suppose. She looked around the table, her eyes sparkling with malice. "But hey, every family needs one, right? The creative one, the dreamer." The way she said dreamer made it sound synonymous with loser. It was a public execution, delivered with a smile. She had taken my life, my passion, the world I had poured my heart and soul into, and reduced it to a childish caricature for the amusement of her wealthy friends. I felt my cheeks burning a humiliation so profound it left me breathless. I wanted to shrink, to disappear, to be anywhere but there, pinned by the pitying and amused glances of a dozen strangers. Chloe, having landed her final blow smoothly, changed the subject back to a recent property sale, leaving me to sit in the crater she had just created. I stared down at my plate, my dessert untouched. But as I risked a glance up, I saw one person at the table who wasn't smiling or looking away in embarrassment. It was Damien Vance. He was looking directly at me, not with pity, but with a sharp, focused curiosity, an expression I had never seen before. It was the look of a man who had just been given a very interesting, unexpected piece of data. Of course. Here is part 6 of the story, the pivotal moment of vindication. Chloe, basking in the glow of her successful put-down, gracefully steered the conversation back to business, leaving me to sit in the echoing silence of my own humiliation. My father gave her a subtle, approving nod. My mother looked relieved that the awkward moment was over. I picked up my water glass, my hand trembling slightly, and tried to disappear, but the silence was broken by an unexpected voice. "I'm sorry," said Damien Vance, his tone quiet, but carrying an authority that immediately cut through Chloe's monologue about zoning permits. He wasn't looking at Chloe. He was looking directly at me. "You said something about slaying digital dragons." Chloe's smile faltered. She shot me a warning look. "Oh, it's nothing, Mr. Vance. Just a silly hobby." Mr. Vance ignored her completely, his gaze still fixed on me. "What game?" he asked again, a genuine curiosity in his eyes. Trapped, I felt my voice come out as a whisper. It's a game called Ethelgard." The change in Damien Vance's demeanor was instantaneous and absolute. The bored, reserved billionaire vanished, replaced by an excited, engaged fan. His eyes widened, and he leaned forward, placing his elbows on the table. "Ethelgard," he said, a slow smile spreading across his face. "You're kidding me. I have logged over 1,000 hours in Ethelgard. My God, the world building is extraordinary. The narrative design, the economic balancing, the lore. It's a masterpiece. The lead designer, the one they call Astra, is an absolute genius." He shook his head in admiration. "My venture capital firm tried to acquire the development studio last year for 9 figures. But she or he, no one knows, wouldn't sell. She's notoriously private." My sister's face had gone completely pale. My parents were staring utterly bewildered. Mr. Vance continued, a thought dawning on his face as he looked at me. He noted my quietness throughout the dinner, my sister's condescending description of my creative life, my one-word answer. The pieces clicked into place behind his keen, analytical eyes. The subtle narrative threads, the way the world feels so lived in and real, he said, his voice dropping slightly with dawning realization. "You're not just a player, are you?" He stared at me, his expression a mix of awe and disbelief. "My God, you're Astra, aren't you?" The entire table went silent. Every eye was on me. Chloe looked like she had seen a ghost. I felt a surge of adrenaline, a dizzying sense of my two worlds about to collide. I took a deep breath, and for the first time that night, I met my sister's shocked gaze. and I didn't flinch. I turned back to Mr. Vance and gave a small, steady nod. "Yes," I said, my voice clear. "That's me." Damien Vance threw his head back and let out a genuine booming laugh of pure delight. He pushed his chair back, stood up, and extended his hand across the table to me, ignoring everyone else. "It is an absolute, unmitigated honor to meet you," he said, his voice ringing with respect. He shook my hand firmly. "The world you built has given me more joy and intellectual stimulation than any multi-million-dollar house I have ever lived in." He then let go of my hand and turned to my stunned sister, his expression all business once more. "Chloe, thank you for a lovely dinner, but I'm afraid my interest in the lakeside estate has waned. My investment priorities have just shifted." He turned his warm, respectful gaze back to me. "Miss Thompson, Astra, I don't want to buy your game. I want to invest in whatever you build next. My office will call you tomorrow. Name your price."